Until the Wyvern Spoke. A story in the Ravenglass Universe. By Jon Cronshaw. 1. The knock came too early for social calls and too late for household business. Annette set down her quill. Ink pooled at the end of an unfinished sentence in the estate ledger. Wool prices from the northern mills. The knock repeated. Svenrich appeared in the study doorway. His fingers worked at his cuff. "My lady, a palace guard requests your immediate presence." Immediate? He used the word incident. A pause. "Concerning Lord Rausch." The quill rolled across the desk. Annette stood, a chair scraping against the floorboards. "Where?" "The Fountain Plaza. He's waiting to escort you." She reached for her shawl, then stopped. Her husband had left before dawn for routine patrol. Dawn to mid-morning, standard rotation. She'd watched him check his equipment in the pre-dawn dark, the same sequence he'd performed 1,000 times. "My lady." Svenrich held out the shawl. She took it. Descended the stairs with Svenrich at the prescribed distance. The guard waited in the entrance hall, grey leathers marked with the commander's insignia. Young, perhaps 20. His eyes tracked her approach but wouldn't meet her gaze. "Lady Rausch," he bowed. "If you'll come with me, please." She stepped outside. The morning had aged 3 hours since she'd last seen it. The guard set a pace just short of urgency, quick enough to prevent questions, slow enough to maintain dignity. Annette matched it. Her house slippers caught on cobblestones, but changing them would have meant delay. The residential quarter gave way to merchant streets. Stalls stood open, but trade had slowed. A baker paused mid-transaction. 2 women at a fabric stall turned to watch. "The plaza?" Annette asked. "Yes, my lady." They turned into the processional avenue. Ahead, the normal flow of traffic had diverted. Carts took side streets, pedestrians crossed to the opposite pavement. The Fountain Plaza, the avenue's busiest intersection on any other day, stood empty. Annette's pace didn't falter. Her fingers tightened on the shawl. The guard led her through the last of the onlookers. Merchants who'd known her for years found their stalls suddenly in need of attention. A woman she'd shared temple services with for a decade discovered business in the opposite direction. Cloth barriers, hastily erected. Palace guards at intervals. And beyond them, in the centre of the plaza, her husband's bonded wyvern. Grey-green scales, amber eyes, wings half spread, not raised for threat, but held wide. Nothing crossed that space. The guard stopped at the barrier. "Lady Rausch." She looked past him, past the wyvern, to the figure on the cobblestones where the fountain had overrun its basin and spread across the stone. Her throat closed, opened. "Thank you," she said. The guard lifted the barrier. Halbrecht waited beyond, hands clasped behind his back, chin slightly raised. "Lady Rausch," he inclined his head. "I regret to inform you." She walked forward. "Sereth." Her voice didn't waver. "May I?" The wyvern's head lowered. Annette crossed the line and knelt, her dress soaked through at the knees. She reached out, touched her husband's shoulder, then withdrew her hand and folded both in her lap. Halbrecht approached. "The strap appears to have failed during a routine patrol maneuver. We'll conduct a full investigation, but initial findings suggest—" "What time?" "Approximately 3 hours ago." 3 hours. She'd been writing wool prices. "Have his effects been catalogued?" "Not yet. We thought it appropriate to wait for the saddle." She shifted forward, leaning over the harness. Her fingers traced the leather without touching the body, reading the configuration. Her hand stopped. The leather edge caught the light. Too clean, too even. Stress fractures tore ragged, exposed fibres, left the leather chewed and white at the break. This was smooth, a straight terminus where there should have been ruin. Annette said nothing. Her fingers moved to the buckle, tested the remaining attachment, then returned to that edge. Halbrecht cleared his throat. The investigation will examine all equipment thoroughly. These incidents, tragic as they are, do sometimes reveal maintenance failings. Too far apart. Serif's voice cut across the plaza. Every head turned. Serif? Halbrecht's chin came up another degree. You've suffered a terrible shock. What your bond partner experienced in those final moments, not confused. The amber eyes fixed on him. Too far apart. Not right. Halbrecht held the wyvern's gaze. Then he turned to the guards. Prepare for transport. He turned back to Annette. Lady Rausch, if you would accompany me to complete the necessary documentation. In a moment. She touched the strap again, her thumb pressed against the smooth edge, clean from edge to weakest point. Blade work. 2. The steward arrived before sunset. Lady Rausch? He bowed at the entrance to her study. Commander Halbrecht requests your attention to certain necessities. Annette gestured to the chair opposite her desk. The steward remained standing. The viewing will be held tomorrow at the second bell. He consulted his folio. The pyre ceremony follows at sunset. Temple Hill, as befits a decorated rider. The High Priestess has been informed. That seems expedient. The protocols are quite specific for rider deaths, my lady. The kingdom honours its defenders swiftly. He produced a document and set it on the desk. Official parchment. The commander's seal already affixed. The standard condolence writ. Your signature acknowledges receipt of official notification and confirms the scheduled arrangements. Annette scanned the text. Regret expressed in the passive voice. Her husband's death framed as something that had occurred, not something that had been done. The strap inspection records, she said. I'll need to review them. The investigation will examine all relevant documentation, my lady. Commander Halbrecht assures me that nothing will be overlooked. I'm certain. She lifted the quill, set it down. When was the strap last inspected? I'm not privy to maintenance schedules, I'm afraid. Such details fall under the purview of the equipment masters. Of course, she signed. Will the commander be attending tomorrow? He will officiate the viewing personally, a mark of respect for your husband's years of service. The steward collected the document, returned it to his folio, and bowed. The kingdom grieves with you, Lady Rausch. By evening, 3 more visitors have called. The Bakers' Guild sent dark rye, traditional for mourning households. The Riders' Widows' Association sent a wreath. Lady Corin from 2 streets over arrived with instructions. You'll stand to the left of the bier. Officials approach from the right. Keep your veil lowered. Acknowledge condolences with a nod, nothing more. She smoothed her skirts. The kingdom values composure. Annette thanked her. Sven Lich cleared his throat from the doorway. Will you require anything else this evening, my lady? Has anyone from the equipment registry called? No, my lady. Send word that I'd like to speak with whoever conducted the last strap inspection. I'll make the inquiry. He paused. Though with the investigation ongoing, they may prefer to route such questions through official channels. Try anyway. He bowed and withdrew. The estate ledger remained open on the desk. Wool prices half recorded. Annette closed it. Opened the household accounts instead. Her husband's salary, paid quarterly, last instalment received 6 weeks ago. The next would not come. Rider widows received a settlement, enough to maintain property for a year. 2, if she was careful. 3. The viewing chamber occupied the eastern wing of Temple Hill's administrative complex. Annette arrived shortly before the second bell. Guards at intervals along the corridor. Armor gleamed. A handler met her at the entrance. Young woman. Rider leathers but no rank insignia.
Lady Rausch? Commander Halbrecht is preparing the space. If you'll wait here, please.
The door stood partially open. Voices filtered through. Position the beer beneath the east window. Adequate ventilation. Civilian observers to the rear gallery.
The handler shifted her weight.
Commander Halbrecht asked me to convey his sympathies once again. Your husband was well regarded among the wing.
Thank you.
He was my flight instructor, actually, 3 years ago. Very patient. She paused. Very thorough. Annette turned. What's your name? Lisa Wren, my lady. He spoke of you, said you had excellent instincts.
Lisa's chin lifted.
I hope to honour his example. The door opened fully. Halbrecht, in formal dress uniform. Dark blue, silver fastenings. The commander's insignia at his collar.
Lady Rausch inclined his head.
Everything is prepared. Before we begin, the preliminary investigation has concluded. Regrettable equipment failure. The strap showed wear consistent with its age and service record. The investigation concluded already? The evidence was straightforward. In cases of rider death, the kingdom prefers swift resolution. Prolonged uncertainty serves no one. When was the strap last inspected? The maintenance logs are being compiled for the formal report. I'm told they'll be available within the week.
Told by whom? The equipment master's office.
He gestured towards the viewing chamber.
Shall we?
They'd laid her husband on a stone bier beneath the eastern window. Cleaned. Dressed in full ceremonial leathers. His face had been arranged, though nothing about the angle of his neck matched the expression they'd given him. The saddle rested on a stand beside the bier. The severed strap had been positioned to show the break, ragged leather, stress and age.
Annette approached. The smooth cut had become a frayed edge.
May I? She gestured towards the saddle.
Of course.
She lifted the strap, turned it in the light. The leather was stiff, newly treated. The supposed stress fracture ran exactly where catastrophic failure would occur, if failure were natural. Is this the original strap?
Yes.
It's been treated. Standard preservation protocol to prevent further degradation before the formal inquiry. Annette set the strap down, returned to the bier. Her husband's hands had been folded across his chest. Someone had cleaned beneath his fingernails. Footsteps in the corridor. Riders and their families. Officials. Citizens who understood the importance of appearing.
They filed through, bowed, murmured, moved on.
Annette nodded, maintained stillness. One man stood apart, older, grey robes of civic administration. He didn't approach the bier. A small ledger open in his hands. Occasionally he wrote. The viewing concluded at the 4th bell. Halbrecht approached with 2 handlers carrying a stretcher.
We'll transport him to the pyre hall now. Preparations for the sunset ceremony.
A low rumble filled the chamber. Sarif stood in the doorway. The wyvern ducked its head to clear the frame, wings folded tight to fit through the corridor.
The handlers froze.
One dropped his end of the stretcher.
Seraph?
Halbrecht's voice stayed level.
This isn't appropriate. Return to the eyrie.
The wyvern moved forward, each step deliberate. She stopped at the bier, lowered her head to the body, and went still.
Seraph, protocol requires...
No. No? A muscle jumped in Halbrecht's jaw. The pyre ceremony is scheduled for... No ceremony, not yet. Lisa appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. Commander, I tried to stop her. She broke through the airy gates. Get additional handlers and someone from the magistrate's office. Halbrecht turned back to the Wyvern. Seraph, the kingdom's protocols exist for good reason. The Wyvern's wing unfolded, spread across the bier in one smooth motion. The membrane stretched wide enough to cover the body. The handlers backed away. Halbrecht remained stock still. Annette stood where she was. The wing's edge had stopped inches from her. She could have reached out and touched those grey-green scales. Seraph, she said. What's wrong? The amber eyes turned to her. Not right, the Wyvern said. Story not right. Halbrecht moved closer, hands open. You're confused. In time? Not confused. The wing didn't move. Story wrong. Death wrong. Commander. The man in grey robes had come forward from the rear gallery. Perhaps we should suspend the ceremony until the situation stabilizes. Magistrate Kalt. Halbrecht's chin came up. This is grief. Wyverns sometimes react unpredictably after losing their riders. Nevertheless, Kalt wrote something in his ledger. The disruption is now a matter of record. The pyre cannot proceed until civic order is maintained. Halbrecht studied the Wyvern, the spread wing, the stance. We'll postpone until tomorrow, he said. Give Seraph time to adjust. He gestured the handlers out. They went quickly. Lady Rausch. He turned to her. I must ask that you avoid speaking publicly about this. Speculation causes unnecessary distress to rider families. The kingdom values discretion during investigations. I haven't speculated about anything. I trust you'll maintain that restraint. He bowed. Until tomorrow. He departed. Colt followed. Lisa hesitated at the door, glanced back, then withdrew. Annette and Seraph remained. They changed the strap, Annette said. Made it look like wear. Seraph's head turned towards her. Story not true. 4. Annette arrived to find the corridor outside the viewing chamber crowded. Conversation halted when she appeared. Resumed after she'd passed. Inside, Seraph hadn't moved. Wings spread across the bier, head lowered but alert. Lady Rausch, Halbrecht emerged from a side entrance. I trust you rested adequately. Well enough. Good. We have matters to address. He gestured towards the corridor. The magistrate has expressed concern about public access. The Great Temple isn't accustomed to this level of interest. The ceremony must proceed, but first, he signalled towards the entrance. A handler entered carrying a riding harness, the leather supple and newly oiled. He stopped just inside the doorway. Seraph. Trained authority. By tradition and protocol, a wyvern unbonded serves the wing. I'm here to begin reassignment assessment. The wyvern's head turned, amber eyes on the handler. The harness is sized appropriately, if you'll permit the fitting. Seraph's wing folded. Not quickly. A deliberate retraction that left the bier exposed. The handler stepped forward. The wyvern turned its entire body away, positioned itself between the handler and the corpse, facing the wall. Seraph, the handler tried again. The wing needs experienced flyers. Your bond partner would have wanted. No bond. Halbrecht moved closer. This isn't a request. Protocol requires no bond. Halbrecht gestured the handler towards the door. We'll revisit this after the ceremony. The handler left, harness clutched against his chest. By midday, the crowd had thickened, 40 or more, distributed along the corridor and spilling into the adjacent gallery. Temple staff moved among them, trying to maintain something approaching reverence. Officials approached Annette, delivered condolences. Their eyes went past her to the Wyvern. One rider, older, decorated, paused longer than the others. "Lady Rausch, your husband served with distinction." "Thank you." Seraph is processing the loss in her own way. Wyverns sometimes need time. The wing hopes to assist with reassignment when she's ready. It's better than isolation. Annette nodded. The rider departed. 3 more visitors cycled through. Then a handler arrived with a cart bearing raw meat and a water trough. Seraph didn't acknowledge the offering. The handler positioned both within reach and withdrew. An hour passed. The meat remained. Water undisturbed. Halbrecht returned after the noon bells with 2 additional handlers. He stopped at the cart. "How long since she's eaten?" "Yesterday morning, sir, before the incident." Wyverns ate daily, substantial portions. Annette had watched her husband prepare Seraph's morning meal often enough to know what refusal meant. Halbrecht approached the Wyvern directly. "Seraph, you're making yourself ill." No response. "The kingdom provides for its wyverns, but you must accept that care." Seraph's tail curled tighter around the bear's base. The wing stretched out again, reclaiming its position. "This accomplishes nothing." Halbrecht's voice hadn't changed. "Your bond partner is gone. Starving yourself won't change that." "Not gone." Quieter than before. "Taken." Halbrecht went still. "Taken?" "Not accident. Taken." The corridor had gone silent. "That's grief speaking," Halbrecht said. "Trauma distorts." "Perception clear? Death clear?" Seraph's head lifted. "Truth clear." One of the handlers stepped back. The other glanced towards the corridor. Halbrecht's voice dropped. "We'll discuss this later. In private." "Truth not private." "Nevertheless." He turned to the handlers. "Clear the corridor. This has become spectacle." The handlers moved to comply. Apologetic firmness. The crowd thinned, but only as far as the gallery's edges. Annette stayed until the afternoon bells. Her legs ached. Hunger had started its own claim, but leaving meant ceding ground. A stable hand arrived with fresh provisions. Young woman, perhaps 16. She positioned the cart, then paused. "Shame," she murmured to another temple servant. "Only the dishonoured are denied flame." "Mind your tongue." "Just saying what everyone's thinking." The stable hand retreated. Annette's hand stilled on her skirts. If the Wyvern contested the official account, then perhaps the fault lay with the rider. Better to assume the dead man had earned his Wyvern's refusal than question the investigation. The verdict was forming. Not in magistrate chambers, in gallery whispers and stable hand observations. Halbrecht reappeared an hour later. "Lady Rausch, perhaps you should return home. The ceremony will proceed tomorrow at dawn. You have my word." "And if Seraph still refuses?" "Then we'll address that when necessary." He gestured towards the exit. "Go. Be with family. Let the wing handle this." Annette inclined her head, collected her shawl, walked towards the corridor. Faces turned as she passed. No one spoke. Yesterday's sympathy had cooled into something else, people measuring her against rumours they were only beginning to assemble. She descended Temple Hill. The processional avenue had resumed its commerce, but conversations dropped as she appeared. The baker who'd sent morning bread yesterday studied his loaves. Annette didn't hurry, didn't slow. 3 streets from home, she passed beneath an upper window. Movement above, curtains shifting. She glanced up. Lady Corin. Their eyes met. Corin's hand lifted, then lowered. The curtain fell back. Annette turned the corner into her own street. More windows. Faces she'd known for years. They watched her approach. Watched her enter her gate. Watched until she'd gone inside. Not one bow. The morning courtesy had been withdrawn. 5. Sven Rich brought a note on the tray alongside tea and bread. Her cousin Freya's seal pressed into blue wax. Annette broke it while the tea steamed. Dearest Annette, I had planned to call this morning, but circumstances have suggested a brief delay might serve better. The household requires my attention to urgent matters. I will write again when the situation settles. With deepest sympathy, Freya. Annette set the note beside her untouched tea. Freya lived 3 streets away. Her household ran with such efficiency that urgent matters requiring personal attention occurred perhaps twice yearly. The second cancellation arrived before noon. The wine merchant who supplied the household sent his apprentice with a written message rather than calling himself. Lady Rausch. Regrettably, I must postpone our quarterly consultation. Current accounts require reconciliation before new orders can be discussed. I will contact you when the books are settled. Respectfully, Merchant Schwartz. The books had never required settling before placing orders. Schwartz's practice was to deliver first, reconcile later. Annette folded both notes and placed them in her desk drawer. Will there be a reply, my lady? No. Sven Rich withdrew. His footsteps faded down the corridor. Annette returned to the household accounts. The figures required attention regardless of who would or wouldn't call. Expenses continued. Creditors expected payment. The knock came mid-afternoon. Svenrich appeared in the study doorway. Magistrate Oren Kalt requests audience, my lady. Show him in. The magistrate entered carrying a leather sabretache. Lady Rausch, he bowed. Thank you for receiving me. I understand this is a difficult time. Please, sit. He settled into the chair opposite her desk, positioning the sabretache beside him. I am tasked with completing the civic record of your husband's death. A formality in most cases, but necessary nonetheless. Of course. He produced a small ledger, opened it to a marked page, drew a quill from an interior pocket and tested its nib against his thumb. The commander has provided his preliminary findings. Equipment failure, as you've been informed. My role is simply to ensure the administrative record aligns with those findings. He glanced up. A few questions, if I may. Certainly. Your marriage, how long were you wed? 14 years. He made a note. And the character of that marriage? Harmonious, I trust? Yes. Harmonious. No significant disagreements? Financial pressures? The usual strains that accompany long partnership? The usual strains exist in any partnership. Ours were no different. Of course. Another note. And your husband's position within the wing? Did he express concerns about his duties? Frustrations with command? Conflicts with fellow riders? He took his service seriously. If he had concerns, he would have raised them through proper channels. Quite right. The quill moved steadily. And his recent behaviour, any changes? Distraction? Unusual absences? Alterations to routine? His routine remained consistent. Correspondence with anyone outside the household? Unfamiliar visitors? No. I see. A longer notation this time. And your own circumstances, Lady Rausch, are you aware of your current financial position? I maintain the household accounts, yes. Then you know about the adjustment to your husband's will. Annette's spine straightened. What adjustment?
Colt looked up from his ledger.
I was informed you'd been notified. My apologies. I assumed the executor had contacted you.
Contacted me regarding what?
He set down his quill. 3 weeks ago, your husband amended his will. The primary inheritance, property, liquid assets, investments, has been redirected. You remain provided for, naturally, a widow's portion. But the bulk of the estate now passes to a trust administered by the Riders' Guild.
I see.
You were unaware of this change?
I was.
Another note. And there was no discussion preceding this decision? No indication he intended such an adjustment?
None.
Curious. He underlined something. Though not unprecedented, riders sometimes make such arrangements when concerned about, well, various contingencies. A changed will, removed financial security, and a convenient explanation for everything that followed. When was this change filed? 21 days ago, witnessed by 2 riders from your husband's wing. Properly notarized, entirely legal. 21 days. She tried to place it. Had there been arguments? Unusual tension? A dinner with neighbours? His preparation for scheduled patrols? Her work on estate correspondence? Nothing. May I ask whether financial pressures existed within the household? Debts, perhaps? Obligations that might have created strain? Our finances are stable. Stable enough to maintain this property without your husband's salary? For a time. How long a time? A year, perhaps longer, with careful management. Another notation. And after that period, should you need to seek alternative arrangements? I haven't considered that far ahead. Understandable. He closed the ledger. One final question, if you'll permit me. Annette waited. The Wyvern's behaviour, her refusal to permit the ceremony, her claims about the nature of your husband's death. Do you have insight into why she might contest the official findings? Seraph knew my husband better than anyone. If she believes something is wrong, perhaps something is. A loyal interpretation. Colt returned the ledger to his sabretash. Though wyverns, despite their intelligence, sometimes struggle with loss. Their bonds run deep. Too deep, occasionally, for rational assessment. He stood, bowed. Thank you for your time. Should additional questions arise, I trust you'll make yourself available. Of course. He moved towards the door, then paused. One small administrative note. I would advise against public speculation regarding your husband's death. Rumour can complicate already difficult situations. I understand. He departed. The front door opened and closed. Annette remained at her desk. Her husband had changed his will, removed her as primary heir, said nothing. She opened her desk drawer, retrieved the 2 cancellation notes, laid them beside each other. Freya's delay, Schwartz's postponement. Neither named what governed their withdrawal. My lady? Svenrich in the doorway. Will you require anything? Where was Commander Halbrecht during the magistrate's visit? I don't know, my lady. Shall I make inquiries? No. He withdrew. Annette looked at the notes, at the accounts, at the empty chair where Colt had sat. Marital harmony, financial strain, the will change, her husband's behaviour. The questions hadn't been seeking what happened. They'd been confirming what had already been decided. 6. The document arrived at mid-morning. Svenrich placed it on her desk alongside the day's correspondence. Heavy parchment, imperial seal. By authority of the Imperial Tribunal, Lady Annette Rausch is hereby advised to remain within her residence until formal proceedings conclude. This restriction serves to protect all parties from undue speculation and ensures testimonial integrity. Compliance is appreciated. Annette set the document aside and returned to the household accounts. Bills required payment. Creditors expected timeliness. She worked until the third bell's first chime echoed across the district. Then she stood, collected the cloak Svenrich had laid across the study chair, descended the stairs. Svenrich waited at the door. His hand rested on the latch, but he didn't open it. "My lady, perhaps—" "The temple," Annette said. "The third bell morning rites." "Yes, only—" He glanced towards the street. Through the window, a guard stood at her gate. Palace uniform, grey leathers, hands clasped behind his back. Annette opened the door herself. The guard turned. "Lady Rausch, good afternoon." "Good afternoon." "Heading out, my lady?" "Temple service." "Ah." He glanced towards the street. "I'll need to accompany you. Tribunal orders. For your protection." Protection from what? The tribunal prefers to ensure prominent figures in ongoing investigations remain secure. "And if I prefer to attend alone?" "I would respectfully suggest postponing until arrangements can be made that satisfy both your preferences and tribunal requirements." Annette stepped back inside, closed the door, hung the cloak on its hook. The second document arrived before sunset. Due to the ongoing tribunal investigation, household staff attached to the Rausch residence are hereby reassigned pending case resolution. This measure ensures testimonial neutrality and prevents inadvertent bias in formal proceedings. Staff will be compensated for the transition period. Annette read it twice, then descended to the kitchen. The staff had assembled: cook, 2 maids, the groundskeeper, Svenrich at their centre, the reassignment notice in his hands. Cook's eyes were red. The younger maid twisted her apron between her fingers. "I know," Annette said. "You're being reassigned." "It isn't right." Cook's voice cracked. 14 years I've worked this household." "I know." Annette retrieved her household ledger from the study, calculated each servant's wages through the quarter's end, added an additional month, paid in coin rather than script. Cook accepted her portion with shaking hands. She moved through them. The groundskeeper, the older maid, the younger one, who whispered thanks without looking up. Svenrich last. He accepted the coins, stood there. "The questions they asked when they reassigned us," he said. "About your character, the household." He stopped, started again. "I told them the truth." "Thank you, Svenrich." He glanced towards the door. "I wish I could say more." "You've said enough." He collected his things and left through the kitchen entrance. The younger maid went next, the groundskeeper. Cook lingered, arranged bread and cold meat in the larder, wiped down the counter one more time. "You shouldn't have to manage alone," she said. "I'll manage." Marta left last. She paused at the door. Her gaze went to the window. She left without speaking. The clock in the study ticked. No fire in the kitchen hearth. Annette climbed to the second floor, her bedroom, her husband's study, the spare room, back downstairs. The guard still at his post. She stood in the entrance hall for a long time. 7. Annette cleared the desk, pushed ledgers aside, set the lamp where its light would fall across the surface. She unwrapped the maps. 3 sheets of standard patrol cartography. Each showed a different sector of Reich Herz's aerial territory, the gridded airspace above the capital, where riders maintained surveillance. Her husband's hand marked each one, dates in the upper corner, route lines traced in careful ink. She oriented the first, northern approach. The standard patrol corridor ran straight from the outer marker to the palace district. Simple. Establish protocol. But the marked line deviated. Not dramatically. A subtle bend roughly 2/3 through the route. The correction shifted the patrol perhaps half a mile east of where regulation required. Annette traced the deviation with her finger. The quill had pressed harder here, emphasizing the alteration. And annotations clustered near the deviation point. Abbreviated notations in rider shorthand. She recognized some from years of watching him work. NC7, Northern Corridor, 7th Sector, plus 12 minutes. 12 minutes added to standard patrol duration. Rep 3 times. She set the first map aside. The second. Eastern Sector. Different approach angle. But there, halfway through the designated route, another deviation. This one bent south. EC4, plus 9 minutes. Rep 2 times. The third. Western approach. The deviation curved north. Same abbreviations, same documentation of repetition and duration. Annette retrieved the estate's territorial map from the shelf, a broader view of Reichsherz and its surrounding districts. Spread it across the desk beside the patrol maps. She positioned each patrol map according to its sector designation. Northern here, Eastern here, Western here. The deviations, viewed together, created corridors. Narrow channels where patrol routes bent away from their designated paths. Gaps in coverage that shouldn't exist. Annette traced the first deviation's trajectory across the territorial map. Extended the line beyond where the patrol route officially ended. The path curved towards the palace district's eastern edge, skirting restricted airspace. Not entering. Skirting. She traced the second. Different angle. Same careful distance from the boundary. Close enough to reach quickly. Far enough to avoid triggering alerts. The third created a similar corridor. 3 patrol routes. 3 deviations. All creating temporary access to airspace that should have remained continuously monitored. Pilots didn't accidentally deviate in identical patterns across multiple flights. The dates showed clear conditions, no notations about wind shear or visibility. Someone was shaping patrol routes to create blind spots, temporary windows where something could move without observation. She picked up the third map again. Her husband had dated each observation. The earliest was 5 weeks old. The most recent, 3 days before his death. 5 weeks of documentation. Then a scheduled meeting with the audit office. External oversight that couldn't be dismissed by internal authority. Then a fall. Footsteps outside. Annette's hand stilled on the map. The guard's silhouette remained at the gate. These footsteps came from the street beyond. Casual pace. She gathered the maps, folded them with the same precision her husband had used, wrapped them in their oilcloth. The footsteps faded. She laid the maps out again. This time, she overlaid them on the territorial chart. Let the 3 patrol sectors align with the broader geography. The deviations, when extended, converged towards the same area. The zone included restricted airspace, but it also bordered the administrative quarter, the diplomatic wing. Several guild halls, including the rider's own headquarters. Not external threat, not foreign agents. Someone within the kingdom's own structure, creating corridors that required hiding from the forces meant to provide security. Someone with authority over flight assignments. Someone whose orders riders would follow without question. Her husband had discovered this, documented it, prepared to report it through channels that bypassed the wing. But the strap had been cut, and the strap had been replaced. And the investigation had concluded before the body was cold. She wrapped the maps in their oilcloth. The flight treatment on the cloth, she understood it now. He prepared this evidence to survive weather, to last. Annette crossed to the window. The guard leaned against the gatepost. She looked down at the oilcloth packet, and she looked at the room around her. The empty house, the cold hearth, the study where her husband had sat with these same maps, marking deviations, dating observations, building a record of something he knew could kill him. She needed somewhere to put them that wasn't here. 8. The knock came 2 hours after dawn. Through the window, Halbrecht stood at her gate, speaking with the guard. The guard nodded, stepped aside. Annette opened the door before he could knock again.
Lady Rausch.
He removed his cap. I apologize for the early intrusion. May I come in?
Of course. She led him to the study, gestured towards the chair opposite her desk.
Halbrecht settled into it.
I wanted to check on your well-being, he said.
House restriction can be isolating. The tribunal means well, but their methods sometimes lack warmth. I'm managing. I'm certain you are. He glanced around the study. The servant's reassignment must have been difficult.
Thereabouts.
Disruption compounds grief. I've seen it many times. He paused. How are you sleeping?
Well enough.
And your appetite? Widows often neglect basic care. I'm eating adequately.
Good.
He shifted position. I've been reviewing your husband's recent duty roster, trying to understand his state of mind in those final weeks. Did he seem distracted to you? Preoccupied?
He took his duties seriously.
That often meant preoccupation. Of course. But beyond the usual focus, did you notice changes, restlessness, difficulty sleeping?
No more than usual.
And his behaviour at home? Unusual absences? Late returns from patrol? His schedule followed wing assignments. Though sometimes sometimes the pressure creates strain. Marriages suffer. Financial concerns arise. He paused. Were there complications, Lady Rausch? Every marriage has its moments. Ours were no different. But the will change. That suggests something beyond ordinary moments.
The will change surprised me as much as it apparently interests everyone else.
Surprise can mask deeper awareness. His tone stayed gentle. Grief distorts memory, Lady Rausch. I've seen it in the families of fallen riders. The mind protects itself, softens difficult truths. My memory is quite clear, Commander. I'm certain it feels that way. But consider, your husband changed his will without telling you. That suggests either significant conflict or significant concern. Or neither.
I'm trying to help you understand what the tribunal will explore.
They'll push harder than I am. It would be easier if you could acknowledge that perhaps grief has made some details less sharp. My memory doesn't require adjustment. Halbrecht sat back. The investigation concluded equipment failure. The tribunal's involvement is unfortunate, but it will reach the same conclusion. Your husband died in a tragic accident. The Wyvern's grief has complicated matters, but grief-stricken creatures aren't reliable witnesses.
When was the strap last inspected?
Halbrecht's response paused. Just a beat.
The maintenance logs are being compiled for the formal report.
You said that days ago. Equipment inspection records are filed immediately after each review, standard protocol. Retrieving specific documentation during active investigation requires care. We can't risk compromising evidence through hasty handling. How long does careful handling require? As long as necessary. His tone had cooled. Lady Rausch, sometimes answers create more questions than they resolve. Sometimes the kindest thing is to accept tragedy and move forward. The kindest thing for whom? Footsteps in the corridor. Rapid. A young rider appeared in the doorway, junior rank, face flushed. He stopped when he saw Halbrecht. Commander, apologies, but there's been an incident at the Eyrie. Halbrecht stood.
What kind?
Seraph, sir. Handler Brent attempted a standard welfare check. She broke his arm. At the elbow joint.
Broke his arm.
Precisely, sir. He'll recover, but... The rider's hands clenched. It wasn't rage. She let him approach, then struck exactly hard enough to prevent him continuing. No more. Halbrecht's jaw worked.
Has she been secured?
She's returned to her position in the viewing chamber. Guards are maintaining distance. The rider hesitated. Handler Brent says she gave warning first, told him to leave. He thought he could calm her. Wyverns don't give warning before attacking. No, sir. Halbrecht turned to Annette. I apologize for cutting this short.
Of course.
He moved towards the door. Stopped. Lady Rausch. Grief unsettles many creatures. Creates behaviours that seem meaningful but reflect only pain. The Wyvern's actions, your own certainty about matters that may be less clear than they appear, both are symptoms of the same distress. Thank you for your concern, Commander. He departed. The front door closed. Annette sat at her desk. Her tea had gone cold. The guard outside had returned to his post. She opened the drawer, the oilcloth packet, closed it again. Halbrecht hadn't asked about the maps, hadn't searched the study, hadn't even glanced at the desk drawers. He'd come to find out whether she'd accepted the story. That was all. 9. The document arrived mid-morning. Tribunal seal. Thicker parchment than previous correspondence. By authority of the Imperial Tribunal and in accordance with Codex Defensorum, Article 12, Section 7, Bestial Testimony Limitation, the creature known as Seraph is hereby declared emotionally compromised in matters pertaining to the death of Rider Anders Rausch. Said compromise renders testimony inadmissible in formal proceedings. This determination serves to protect both institutional integrity and the welfare of the creature in question. Signed, Adjunct Prosecutor Faust, Imperial Tribunal. Annette set the document down, moved to her reference shelf. Her husband had kept a copy of the Codex Defensorum. Every Rider household did. She pulled it down, flipped to Article 12. Half a page. Dense legal language describing circumstances under which Wyvern testimony could be challenged or dismissed. Drafted 3 centuries ago after a Wyvern's account had contradicted its dead rider's written orders. Most legal scholars considered it dormant precedent, acknowledged but never used in modern jurisprudence. She returned to the tribunal's document, read it again. Movement at the rear of the house. Not the front entrance where the guard maintained position. The garden gate. Annette crossed through the empty kitchen to the rear door, unlocked it. Lisa stood in the garden, riding leathers, pale. Her hands clenched and unclenched at her sides. Lady Rausch. She glanced back towards the gate. I shouldn't be here. Come inside. Lisa slipped through the door. Annette closed it. Led her to the kitchen where windows didn't face the street. The statute, Lisa said. You've seen it? This morning. Did they tell you where the request originated? The tribunal issued it. The tribunal enacted it. The request came from inside the wing. Commander Halbrecht filed the motion 3 days ago, before the Wyvern injured the handler, before any formal justification existed. That doesn't make sense. I saw the documentation, Lisa said. Classified as internal administrative correspondence, but Handler Brent is my friend. He showed me the filing timeline after they set his arm. She swallowed. Halbrecht had the statute prepared before Seraph gave him reason to invoke it. Why are you telling me this? Because your husband taught me that riders serve truth before protocol. that the bond matters more than the chain of command. Her voice cracked. He wouldn't have wanted his death used to silence the only witness who saw what happened. This risks your career. I know. She glanced towards the door. But I can't watch them bury him twice.
Did Halbrecht file the request alone?
3 signatures. Halbrecht, Commander Schneider from the Eastern Wing, and someone from the Equipment Certification Office. She pulled a folded paper from her jacket. I copied the names. Annette accepted the paper. 3 names in Lisa's precise script. Lisa moved towards the door, stopped. Be careful. They're calling you grief compromised. Same language as the Wyvern. If you push too hard, they'll use a statue as precedent. Lock you out of proceedings entirely. I understand. Lisa left the way she'd come, over the rear wall. Annette read the 3 names. Then she burned the paper in the kitchen hearth and scattered the ashes. She returned to the study, the tribunal's document on the desk, the codex open beside it, the drawer where the oilcloth packet waited. 2 witnesses to whatever had happened in that formation. One dead, the other legally muted. 10. Morning light pressed through the study windows. Annette compiled a short list. Bread, lamp oil, writing ink. She folded the list, collected her purse. The guard outside tracked her emergence from the house. Market errands, she said. He nodded, fell into step 3 paces behind. The baker's shop occupied the corner where residential streets met the merchant district. Annette had purchased bread there for 12 years. The shop's door stood open. She entered. The baker's wife looked up from wrapping a customer's order. Her hands stilled. Resumed. Lady Rausch? She tied off the package. What can I provide? 2 loaves of the dark rye, please. Ah. The baker's wife glanced towards the shelves. I'm afraid we're quite low today. Supply difficulties. 3 loaves sat on the shelf, steam still fogging the window behind them. Those appear fresh, Annette said. Promise to another customer. Perhaps tomorrow? Of course. The chandler's shop 2 streets over. He looked up at her entrance. Lady Rausch, it's been some time. Lamp oil, 2 bottles. Certainly. He made no move towards the shelves. Though I'll need to check inventory, supply delays. If you could return this afternoon. Your shelves appear well stocked. For committed orders, yes, but loose stock. He spread his hands. This afternoon would be better. The stationer, 3 streets further. The proprietor stood at his counter organising inventory. Writing ink, Annette said. Black. The usual formula. Of course. He retrieved a bottle, set it on the counter. 3 krones. Your prices have increased. Advance payment ensures priority fulfillment. Given current supply uncertainties, I'm required to collect full value before release of goods. Annette paid, accepted the bottle. The guard said nothing about the 3 shops, just followed as she returned home with 1 bottle of ink. The letter arrived with the afternoon post. Dearest Annette, I write with sisterly concern regarding your current difficulties. The family believes your best course involves full cooperation with tribunal authority. I urge you to consider that silence often restores honour more effectively than protest. What seems like injustice in the moment may reveal itself as mercy over time. The family stands ready to assist once circumstances permit. Your cousin, Freya. She unfolded a second note. 4th bell, Archive Annex, East Entrance. Come alone. No signature, but in the corner, small, precise, a mark she recognised from her husband's papers. Rider cipher. Annette studied the mark. Her husband had explained the system once. Each rider develops slight stylistic differences. She couldn't place this one. She looked towards the window. The guard maintained his street-side post. She folded the note, placed it in the desk drawer beside the oilcloth packet. 11. The archive annex occupied the oldest section of Temple Hill's administrative complex. Stone corridors, vaulted ceilings. Annette arrived at the 4th bell. She told the guard she was attending evening prayer. The walk from temple to archive took moments. The east entrance stood open. A clerk sat at the entrance desk, cataloguing returns. He glanced up, nodded, returned to his work. Annette moved deeper, past the general stacks, through administrative records, into the older corridors, where military documentation sat in ordered rows. Footsteps from behind, light, measured. Lisa emerged from between 2 shelf rows. Her gaze swept the corridor before settling on Annette. Lady Rausch, we don't have long. You sent the note. Yes. Lisa moved to the corridor's centre. Your husband filed an internal concern 3 weeks before his death. Formal protocol. Documented submission to the Wing's compliance office. Route deviations. Systematic patterns creating gaps in aerial coverage. He cited specific dates, specific riders, specific sectors. Registry number assigned. Acknowledgement receipt issued. But the document's gone. Complete removal from the archives. I checked yesterday, went through the compliance office records personally. The registry number exists. The space in the filing sequence where it should sit. But the submission itself. She exhaled. Gone. Who had access? Compliance office staff, commanders, anyone with sufficient administrative clearance. She glanced towards the corridor entrance. I couldn't check access logs without triggering alerts, but the timing. Your husband filed the concern on the 14th. By the 17th, it had vanished. 3 days. Who was killed on the 6th? 23 days after the concern disappeared. Lisa's voice dropped. Time enough to plan. You said he named riders. 3. I couldn't access the full document, but the registry abstract lists principals referenced in the submission. Commander Schneider, Captain Thane, Captain Erno Vale. Vale, Annette said. Now serves on the Incident Review Board. He's part of the investigation examining your husband's death. Footsteps echoed from a distant corridor. Both women stilled. The footsteps continued past. There's something else, Lisa said. The statute silencing Seraph. The request reached the tribunal unusually fast. Normal invocation requires 14 days minimum, legal review, precedent examination, formal hearing. This one processed in 4. Efficiency isn't necessarily suspicious. It is when the paperwork was pre-drafted. Lisa's jaw tightened. I saw the tribunal filing, precise citations, professional legal language, the kind of document that takes days to prepare. But it arrived at the tribunal within hours of Seraph injuring the handler. How long before? Based on formatting and filing codes, at least a week. She checked the corridor. I need to go. Pre-flight briefing starts in 10 minutes. Thank you. Just be careful who you trust. The Wing isn't monolithic, but the people who removed that concern have resources. Your husband made one mistake. He assumed proper channels would protect him. She departed, footsteps unhurried. Annette remained in the corridor. Then she walked towards the entrance. The clerk barely looked up as she passed. Evening air, coal smoke, the temple bells beginning their sunset sequence. She walked home through gathering dark. The guard at her gate nodded. She entered. climbed to the study, the oilcloth packet in its drawer, the note beside it, and now 3 names she couldn't write down and couldn't forget. 12. Annette purchased meat at the market, not household cuts. Raw beef, the kind riders fed their mounts. 2 pounds wrapped in butcher's paper. The guard at her gate tracked the package. Lady Rausch? The Wyvern hasn't eaten in days. She adjusted her grip. I'm going to Temple Hill. You're welcome to accompany me. He hesitated. I'll need to inform my supervisor. Inform him after. She walked. He followed. Temple Hill's eastern courtyard had been cleared. The pyre dismantled. Stone swept clean. But Seraph remained, near the viewing chamber entrance. Grey-green scales dulled. Wings folded tight against flanks where ribs showed through. Guards at a distance. A handler near the courtyard's edge, beside a cart of untouched provisions. Annette approached. The Wyvern's head turned, amber eyes on her. 10 paces. The handler shifted. Lady Rausch, I don't think. She needs to eat. We've tried, multiple times. But let me try. 5 paces. 3. Seraph's head lowered. Not aggressive. Measuring. Annette stopped at arm's length, unwrapped the butcher's paper. You need to eat, she said. He wouldn't have wanted this. The Wyvern's nostrils flared. That great head lowered further, close enough that breath moved the hair at Annette's temples. Annette set the meat on the courtyard stones, stepped back. Seraph tore into it. Not frantically. The handler's mouth opened, closed. Citizens had gathered at the courtyard's edges. They watched. Seraph finished the meat, raised her head, amber eyes fixed on Annette. Not full. Not full? Annette kept her voice level. Pushed apart. In the formation. Yes, formation broke. Not accident. Seraph's tail curled against the courtyard stones. Other rider came close. Too close. Crowding. What happened? Forced position change. Made space wrong. The Wyvern's wings shifted. Not weather. Not confusion. Deliberate. You saw which rider? Yes. But you're not permitted to say. Seraph's head tilted. Statute silences. But truth remains. A woman near the front of the crowd turned to her companion. Their voices carried. She said pushed apart. That's not accident. The statute declared her unreliable. Unreliable enough to refuse all other contact, but reliable enough to accept the widow's care. The woman shook her head. The guards shifted. One moved towards the observers. Clear the courtyard. It's a public courtyard, someone called back. We've right to be here. Not when proceedings are ongoing. What proceedings? The investigation concluded. Equipment failure. The commander said so himself. The observers remained. More arrived. The handler approached. Lady Rausch, perhaps you should depart. The Wyvern has eaten. Yes. Annette turned to leave. The crowd parted. The guard fell into step behind her, silent. They descended Temple Hill. 13. Annette climbed to the study without pause. She retrieved the oilcloth packet, spread the 3 patrol charts across her desk beside the territorial map. Pushed apart. Crowding. Formation disruption. She traced the first deviation again. Northern approach. The route bent east 2/3 through its designated path. If a rider crowded from the south, the correction would force northward adjustment. would create a temporary gap in the zone being vacated. The gap aligned with the documented deviation. She moved to the second map, Eastern Sector. The deviation curved south. A rider crowding from the north would force exactly that adjustment. The third completed it. Western Approach, deviation north. Annette retrieved fresh paper, sketched the 3 corridors to scale. Each connected restricted airspace to a point beyond standard patrol coverage. Each created a window roughly 8 to 12 minutes long, based on her husband's timing notations. Riders were being crowded into position adjustments that appeared tactical, that created blind spots, manufactured gaps, allowing movement between points that should have remained monitored. 3 separate sectors, multiple riders, precise timing. Someone had to be issuing the orders. Annette returned to her husband's desk, opened his personal calendar. Standard entries, patrol schedules, maintenance appointments, social obligations. Nothing about the audit office. She flipped back through previous months, training dates, wing ceremonies, equipment inspection, her birthday, their anniversary. Nothing. She pulled open the lower drawer, correspondence filed by date, official memoranda, personal letters. Near the back, a single sheet folded small. Different paper than standard stationery. Imperial Audit Office. Appointment confirmed. 6th day, 3rd bell. Private consultation requested. Confirmation code NC7. Oversight. The 6th day. The day he died. 3rd bell, mid-afternoon. It'd fallen during morning patrol. 4 hours before this meeting. Private consultation. He'd gone directly to the audit office, the one institution with authority to review military operations independent of military command. And he told no one. Not his fellow riders, not the compliance office, not her. Annette sat with the paper in her hands. The appointment bore standard audit office formatting. Official. Documented. Filed somewhere in their records. Which meant requesting it had left a trail. Someone with access to audit scheduling would have seen it. She looked at the maps, at the appointment confirmation, at the 4 hours between morning patrol and a meeting that never happened. 14. The will amendment sat filed with other legal documents. Annette had noted it during the magistrate's visit. Now she pulled it from the drawer. Primary inheritance hereby redirected to trust administered by the Riders' Guild. Lady Annette Rausch retains widow's portion as prescribed by law, sufficient for household maintenance and personal needs. All other assets, properties, and entitlements transfer to Guild administration, the distribution according to established protocol. She set the document down. Retrieved the Codex Defensorum. Article 8. Dishonour provisions. When a rider is found guilty of dereliction, conspiracy, or actions contrary to the kingdom's interest, all assets obtained through military service may be subject to forfeiture. Family properties held jointly may be claimed by the Crown to offset damages resulting from said dishonour. Annette read the will amendment again. 3 weeks before his death. The same period when his formal concern had disappeared from official record. Under dishonour provisions, a rider reframed as conspirator rather than whistleblower would lose everything. The house, the investments, all of it claimable by the Crown, except the widow's portion. Even dishonour proceedings couldn't touch that. He'd moved their assets beyond reach of forfeiture, left her only what couldn't be taken. The magistrate's questions, financial strain, marital discord, the will change, all building towards guilty rider rather than murdered witness. And the will change that should have protected her had given them the narrative. Evidence of a marriage fracturing, a husband distancing himself. Annette's hands flattened on the desk. She thought it meant he didn't trust her. 14 years, and she'd believed the magistrate's version, Freya's version, the version where the will meant something had broken between them. It meant the opposite. He trusted her to bear the suspicion, trusted her to find the rest. She returned the documents to the drawer. The study had grown dark. She reached for the lamp, stopped. Footsteps outside. Not from the street, from the rear garden. Someone along the house's perimeter, stopping to test windows, examine locks. The figure continued around towards the kitchen entrance, disappeared from view. Annette moved through the dark house, extinguished the kitchen lamp, the entrance hall light. She positioned herself in the kitchen, back against the wall, where she could see the rear entrance. A scrape at the door. Metal on metal. The lock clicked. The door opened slowly. A figure slipped inside, closed the door, stood in the kitchen darkness, waiting for eyes to adjust. Male, medium height, one hand resting on something at his belt. The figure moved towards the interior, towards the stairs, towards her husband's study. Annette let him pass, let him get deep enough into the house that retreat would require passing her position. Then she moved to the rear door, slipped outside, circled to the front entrance. The guard turned. "Lady Rausch, what are you?" "There's someone in my house. They entered through the rear. They're searching my husband's study." "Someone broke in. I want you to document it, witness it, before they can claim I'm imagining things." He drew his blade. "Stay here." "No, this is my home." She walked through her front door. The guard followed. They moved through the dark house. Light flickered in the study above, someone working by shielded lamp. The guard took the stairs first, positioned himself in the doorway. "By authority of the Imperial Tribunal, identify yourself." The figure at the desk spun. Young man, rider leathers. His hand moved towards his belt. "Don't." The guard's blade lifted. "Hands visible." The rider complied, slowly. Annette entered behind the guard. The desk had been searched, drawers open, papers scattered. But the drawer he needed was the one he hadn't reached. "Explain your presence," the guard said. "Wing business, commander's orders, documents that require review." "In the middle of the night, through rear entrance." "The lady's been difficult. Commander authorized alternative approach." "Show me authorization." "Verbal. Classified matter." "Then you'll come with me." The rider's gaze flicked to Annette, to the desk, to the unopened drawer. "Lady Rausch," the rider said. "Whatever you think you've discovered, it's more complicated than you understand." "I understand someone broke into my home." His hands clenched, released. "This isn't finished." "No," Annette said. "It's not." The guard gestured towards the door. "Move." The rider descended ahead of them, out through the front entrance. The guard's whistle brought additional patrol within minutes. Annette watched them take him away. 15. Annette opened the desk drawer. Empty. She checked the other drawers, pulled them fully open. Ledgers, correspondence, household documents. Everything else remained. She ran her fingers along the drawer's interior. The left runner sat slightly elevated. Someone had removed it completely, searched behind and beneath, then replaced it without precision. The desk's side panel showed a hinge not fully seated. Wood grain mismatched by half an inch. The front door opened. Footsteps in the entrance hall. Multiple people. Annette descended. 2 men waited. Grey robes. Tribunal insignia. They bowed. "Lady Rausch, we apologize for the intrusion." "What intrusion?" "The protective search conducted this morning. Standard procedure in ongoing investigations." The lead functionary produced a ledger, made notation. All items removed will be catalogued and returned pending case resolution.
May I review the search authorization?
Of course. He flipped pages. Standard language authorizing search of premises. Nothing about specific items. And the inventory? She asked. The catalogue documenting what was removed? The functionaries exchanged glances. That's being compiled. So no record exists of what was taken. A record is being prepared, but doesn't exist currently. These processes require proper documentation. Show me the entry log. Silence. Officials entering private residence must document time of entry, personnel present, and items removed. Standard tribunal procedure. Show me the log. Lady Rausch, I assure you all proper protocols were followed. So the log should exist. The log will be filed with the final inventory. Will be, meaning it doesn't exist yet. Meaning it's being formalized. Then the search didn't occur. The functionary stilled. If no entry log exists, no inventory was created. No documentation proves the search occurred. And according to tribunal procedure, it didn't happen. Whatever you removed, you took without authorization. Lady Rausch, you're overwrought. I want those items returned. The lead functionary closed his ledger. The tribunal will address your concerns through proper channels. I look forward to that conversation. They departed. A crash echoed from outside, distant. Stone breaking, metal rending. Annette moved to the window. Citizens had stopped in the street. Heads turned towards Temple Hill. More crashes, then a roar that rattled glass. Another roar, longer, carrying across the district. Annette grabbed her cloak. Lady Rausch, you can't. She walked. The guard followed. Citizens joined the flow towards Temple Hill. The courtyard came into view. Handlers scattered across its perimeter, guards behind makeshift barriers, and at the centre, Seraph. Wings half spread, tail lashing. The harness posts that had contained her lay splintered, stone scored with claw marks. The viewing chamber's doorframe bore fresh damage where she'd forced passage. But she wasn't rampaging. She moved in tight circles, checking sightlines. A handler approached from the east. Seraph's head snapped towards him. Wings flared. The handler retreated. Halbrecht stood near the guards. Commander, a senior handler. She's getting worse. We need to... Armed. Seraph's voice cut through the courtyard. Armed. Coming. Soon. Halbrecht's jaw worked. She's confused. Trauma manifesting. Armed. Seraph turned, fixed him with amber eyes. No threat. Smell preparation. Violence approaches. Annette pushed through the crowd, moved towards the courtyard's edge. The guard tried to stop her. She shrugged him off. Seraph, what do you sense? Intention. Decision made. Tools being prepared. Her wings shifted. They arm themselves. Plain necessity. But purpose is silencing. Silencing who? Witnesses. Those who refuse narrative. Seraph's tail lashed. Me? You? Halbrecht stepped forward. Lady Rausch, you're encouraging dangerous delusion. Someone broke into my home this morning and removed documents without record. Now a wyvern who's never shown aggression prepares for combat. Annette met his gaze. That's not delusion. Grief makes patterns. Officials who document everything created no record of a search. That's not a pattern. That's a fact. Citizens pressed closer. Albrecht's expression hardened.
Clear the courtyard. Public space, someone called. We've right to observe. Not when safety is compromised. Whose safety? Annette asked. Guards shifted. Handlers looked to Halbrecht. Seraph moved to the courtyard centre, positioned herself where walls couldn't trap her, where violence, if it came, would have to cross open ground. They come tonight, she said. Tomorrow, at latest. Decision made. Silencing approved. Halbrecht turned to his guards. Get the handlers. Prepare restraints.
To what end? Annette asked. Kill her? A wyvern who's broken no laws except refusing silence. She gestured towards the crowd. In front of witnesses. His eyes narrowed. You're hysterical. My house was searched without following proper procedures. Documents were stolen. The wyvern who witnessed my husband's murder prepares for attack. She kept her voice level. Those are facts, Commander. Not hysteria. Halbrecht turned to the guards. Establish perimeter. No one enters without authorization. 16. The document arrived via courier. Preliminary findings. Case reference TH447D. Investigation into the death of Rider Anders Rausch has determined probable cause. Pilot misjudgment, compounded by domestic strain. Evidence suggests momentary distraction during routine maneuver resulted in equipment stress beyond tolerance thresholds. Contributing factors include documented marital discord and financial pressures. Final report pending tribunal review. Annette set the document down. She walked to the window. Across the street, a neighbour stood in his doorway reading an identical document. 2 doors down, another. The messenger's route had been thorough. Lisa appeared at sunset, through the rear garden, paler than before. I can't stay, she said. Reassignment orders. Eastern Border Garrison. Immediate deployment. When? Tomorrow at dawn. No appeals. Her jaw tightened. They're efficient when they want to be. This is because you help me. This is because I ask questions. Her hands clenched. I knew the risk. They stood in the darkening kitchen. The preliminary findings, Annette said. Everyone's seen them. That's the point. By the time tribunal issues their formal conclusion, the story's already set. Unless someone disrupts it. How? They control the channels, the documentation, who gets heard. She gestured towards herself. I'm being sent 500 miles away. You're painted as grief-compromised. Seraph's testimony is inadmissible. They prefer shadow, Annette said. Controlled information. So make it visible. Lisa studied her. They've already authorized escalation. The break-in, the search, the findings. They're moving fast because you haven't broken. The memorial procession, Annette said. Tomorrow. Commanders, tribunal officials, citizens, public space. Lisa was quiet for a moment. Be careful. My husband tried proper channels, trusted procedure. I know. I won't make that mistake. Lisa moved towards the door. He taught me to serve truth. Thank you for reminding me what that costs. She went over the garden wall, into darkness. Annette returned to the study. The preliminary findings on the desk, pilot misjudgment, domestic strain, 14 years rewritten in 2 paragraphs. She extinguished the lamp, sat in darkness, and planned. 17. Annette drafted the petition before dawn. Request for ceremonial inclusion. The Wyvern Seraph, unbonded following the death of Rider Anders Rausch, petitions to participate in the memorial procession for fallen riders.
As witness to the deceased's service and bond partner of 14 years, her presence honours both rider and tradition. She signed it, sealed it, delivered it personally to the temple administrative office at first bell. The clerk read it. This is irregular. Section 12 of Ceremonial Protocols. Any wyvern with established service record may participate if petition is filed 24 hours prior. Annette kept her tone administrative. I'm filing 26 hours before procession. The clerk's mouth worked. I'll need to consult temple authority. Consult. The petition is filed. She left before he could construct objection. Dawn broke cold. Citizens lined the processional avenue in silent ranks. Annette, dressed in formal mourning grey, walked to Temple Hill at first light. Seraph waited in the eastern courtyard. Handlers had groomed her, polished her scales, attached ceremonial harness bearing the fallen rider's colours. Her wings remained half-furled. A gaze tracked every approach. Annette approached. Are you ready? Always. The procession assembled, commanders in formal dress, riders bearing their fallen comrades' standards, officials from tribunal and temple, citizens who'd served or lost loved ones. Annette took her position at the procession's centre, beside Seraph. Halbrecht stood among the commanders, his gaze tracked her. The drums began. The procession moved. Citizens lined the avenue 3 deep, removed caps, lowered heads. Annette walked, steady pace. Seraph beside her, moving with surprising grace through streets designed for human traffic. Past the merchant quarter, through the administrative district, towards Temple Hill, where tribunal officials waited. They reached Temple Hill's base. The tribunal steps rose ahead. Officials assembled, prosecutors, administrators, commanders. The procession began its ascent, drums echoing off stone, banners streaming. Halfway up the steps, Seraph stopped. The drums faltered, continued, faltered again, stopped. Silence. Annette stood beside the wyvern, waiting. Seraph's head turned, tracked across assembled officials, across commanders. Her gaze fixed. Captain Erno Vale. The name carried across the plaza. Vale, standing among the commanders in full ceremonial dress, went rigid. The colour left his face. That rider, Serif's voice carried across stone. That rider crowded, force position, created fall. Whispers multiplied into conversation, into shouting, as hundreds of citizens tried to process what they'd heard. Officials exchanged rapid glances. Commanders formed around Vale. Helbrecht's mouth opened, closed, opened. This is the statute. Clearly, wyvern testimony has been deemed inadmissible in formal proceedings, Annette said. This isn't formal proceeding. This is ceremony, public space. Clear the plaza, Halbrecht said. This ceremony has been disrupted. By truth, someone shouted from the crowd. The wyvern names a murderer, and you want silence? The statute protects against unreliable. Reliable enough to be groomed and paraded, but not reliable enough to speak. Vale remained frozen. Tribunal officials conferred. Guards moved to establish perimeter. But hundreds of citizens already filled the plaza, already heard. Annette stood beside Seraph. The drums resumed, uncertain. The procession tried to continue. Annette walked on, Seraph beside her. 18. Vale was detained before the procession dispersed. Commanders closed around him, escorted him away. By afternoon, word filtered through the district. The captain had been taken to wing headquarters. Questions were being asked. Not tribunal. Wing internal review. Annette heard this from the baker's wife, who'd heard it from a palace servant, who'd heard it from a guard. She returned home. The guard at her gate looked uncertain. No new orders. Lisa's final message arrived before she departed for the border. A note slipped under the door during the chaos following the procession. Vale claimed he was ordered to crowd the formation. Standard tactical exercise to test pilot response under pressure. He followed commands from superior officer. The strap failure was unfortunate coincidence. He maintains no intent to harm. They're calling it training error, negligent supervision. But the orders came from somewhere. Be careful, they're containing this. Vale would face consequences, career damage, reassignment. But if Vale faced murder charges, questions would follow about who gave orders, about why those orders coincided with equipment failure. By the third day, the tribunal had expanded investigation scope. Not just Vale, the patrol system, route assignments, coverage patterns. Annette walked the market, listened. A smuggling operation, small scale. Contraband moving through temporarily blind corridors in patrol coverage. A few corrupt riders, some complicit merchants. Her husband had noticed the pattern, documented irregularities, filed internal concern. His vigilance should be commended. The story provided answers while avoiding deeper questions. Who authorised patrol route changes? Who ensured equipment inspections missed critical wear? Who removed the formal concern from compliance records? Who monitored audit office appointments? Halbrecht remained visible, attending ceremonies, issuing statements about enhanced oversight. But his second-in-command transferred to administrative duties. 3 senior equipment inspectors retired early. The compliance office received a new director from external command. The document arrived on the 7th day. Investigation into the death of Rider Anders Rausch has determined operational misconduct within patrol command structure. Evidence indicates unauthorized exploitation of coverage patterns for contraband transport. Captain Erno Vale has been found negligent in execution of formation maneuvers. Commander oversight proved inadequate. Reforms implemented. Personnel reassigned. Systems enhanced to prevent recurrence. Classification: operational misconduct. Case resolved. Annette filed it with the other correspondents. The guard had been withdrawn. Restriction lifted. She was free to move through the district again. She stood at her window. The street looked the same as it had the morning Svenrich brought the first knock to her study door. Merchants open, citizens walking. The district conducting its business. Operational misconduct. 2 words. Case resolved. Her husband existed somewhere in the official record now, not as murdered witness, as vigilant rider whose concern led to reforms. Death rewritten into purpose. Annette turned from the window. The house was quiet. The desk was empty. The drawer where the oilcloth packet had sat held nothing. She had the petition she'd filed, the preliminary findings they'd circulated, Freya's letters, Schwartz's postponement, the notes documenting who had withdrawn and when. She had what Serif had said on the steps, and the hundreds who'd heard it. She sat down at her desk, opened a fresh ledger, and began to write. 19. The baker's wife served Annette without hesitation. 2 loaves of dark rye. Thank you, Lady Rausch. She met Annette's gaze. We're glad to have you back. Annette walked home past shops that had closed accounts and now reopened them. Past the chandler who had lamp oil readily available. Past merchants who quoted standard prices. The bows had returned, though delayed slightly, performed with a hesitation that hadn't existed before, but present. Freya's letter arrived in the afternoon post. Dearest Annette, the family rejoices at the investigation's resolution. Your husband's service has been properly honoured, his concerns validated. We hope you find peace in knowing his vigilance led to meaningful reform. When you feel ready, we would welcome your company at dinner. Your cousin, Freya. Word of Halbrecht's transfer arrived through official channels. Commander Halbrecht reassigned to Northern Territories, effective immediately. Commendation for service. Gratitude for leadership during difficult period. 500 miles away. Larger garrison. Positioned as recognition. 3 equipment inspectors retired. Compliance office director transferred. Vale's command structure reorganized. New commander arriving. Untainted. Implementing reforms. Standard rotation. Annette visited Temple Hill on the 8th day. Seraph remained in the eastern courtyard. Handlers had stopped attempting reassignment. The wyvern scales had regained some luster, regular feeding, the physical recovery progressing. Now safe? Annette stood beside her, looked out across the plaza where citizens conducted ordinary business. No, just alive. Seraph's head lowered. Truth spoken, the wyvern said. That matters. The official record says operational misconduct, says reforms implemented, says nothing about murder. Official records are not only truth. Citizens heard, witnessed. That persists. Memory fades. Some memory, not all. Amber eyes tracked the plaza. Doubt remains. We made doubt hard to ignore. Annette didn't answer. She stood with the wyvern for a long time. Then she walked home through afternoon light. Her house no longer guarded, her movements no longer restricted. She climbed to the study, sat at the desk. The ledger she'd started lay open. Dates, names, events. Everything she'd witnessed, in the order it happened. The knock that came too early for social calls, the strap that hadn't frayed, the maps she no longer had, the things she still carried that couldn't be taken from a drawer. She picked up her quill, found her place, and continued. The end. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. To find out more about Jon Cronshaw and his work,